with Cypriot football, it's the most dysfunctional league I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
Look, just give you a bit of background on many of the clubs. A lot of them are very political. They're either linked with a political party or they have investors from abroad. We've got a couple of clubs that are owned by Russians. So a lot of money's come into the league, a lot of big names for the league anyway. The quality isn't as great as what I think it should be, but it's getting better. Having spoken to an analyst of a club there, he said that their standard is practically championship mid-table or a little bit lower. The league is changing. It's changing a lot. We've got very decent academies out there. And as I said, with the foreign money coming in, it's only boosting the clubs. And Ajax are one of the clubs that have benefited from, I wouldn't say foreign investment because they still have a Cypriot president, but a foreign influence, so to speak. What we need to bear in mind is that Ajax are effectively a new club. They were formed in 1994, and it happens quite a lot in Cyprus where two teams will merge into one,
right?
Either due to politics or clubs going bankrupt, whatever. So Ajax were founded in 1994. They actually got to, what was it? I think the second round of the Cup Winners' Cup in '97. They lost 2-0 to Barcelona. Ronaldo and Prosinecki scored in the first leg. But they're still a fairly new team. They've only won 2 cups. They've never won a league title. When you look at Cypriot football, you think of Apoel, the team that famously got to the quarterfinals of the Champions League. My team, Omonia, Anorthosis, or the first Cypriot team. So Ajax, they're fairly new, but realistically, they're the only team in Larnaca. While there are 2 other teams, they're known as refugee clubs because they came from the north, but Ajax are Larnaca through and through.
Right.
So in terms of a European adventure, this is probably their most successful. But just to give you a bit of a backstory, it's a long one, but I'll try and simplify it as much as I can. Basically, Ajax finished second last season, and so last season was the first year 2 teams in Cyprus could qualify for the Champions League.
Right.
And Ajax came second. So they went through the qualifiers. I think they lost to Midtjylland on penalties in the Champions League qualifiers, which meant they slipped into the Europa League qualifiers. They knocked out Dnipro, and they also knocked out Partizan Belgrade to get them through to the Europa League. And they played Rennes, Dinamo Kiev, and Fenerbahce. That's right.
Right.
And they slipped into the Conference League by finishing third, and then they played Dnipro again in the last round. And knocked them out. So it's been a long, arduous season for them. It's been very physically demanding. But to be fair, mate, the squad of players that they have, a lot of these players have played top-level football in La Liga, in Serie A. So I wouldn't say they're, what's the word that they use? Farmers, that's the derogatory term. They're not. These players have played for their national teams. They've played in big leagues abroad, so they know about the standards. But do they have the physicality and the energy to cope with teams such as West Ham? That is the question I'm a little bit funny about, to be honest. I'm not sure if they can cope with it. So they built this new stadium. Only holds 8,000. And the fans can be a little bit rowdy, but again, because it's a fairly new team, you're not going to get, 3,000-4,000 ultras like you would with the bigger clubs. That being said, I know a lot of tickets are being sold. There's a lot of expats living in Cyprus. I appreciate expats, and they're going to be wanting to go to watch the game, but their fans could be a little bit rowdy as well. I know there's a game this season between Ajax and Salamina, and it did get a little bit naughty. A couple of journalists got beaten up as well. There have been stadium bans. Look, Cyprus is a fantastic island to go to, but when it comes to football, it does get a little bit too far. This season, we've had games cancelled because stadiums have been set on fire, Molotov cocktails thrown on the pitch, all sorts of stuff happening. So, look, it's a lovely place to go to, but just be very, very careful because the police out there don't tolerate much either. You're going to talk about Ajax playing style. I'm expecting, because if the first leg's at home, so I'm expecting them to play very similar to what they do in Cyprus against the big clubs. They'll try to hit teams on the counter-attack, but they're very good on transition, on turnover. They're wide players. They're their strongest weapon, so to speak, the 2 wide men. You've got Faraj, this right winger, who signed from Muscron a couple of years ago. He's 24 years old. He reminds me of Riyad Mahrez. I'm not saying he's like Riyad Mahrez, but he reminds me of that, you know, right foot, left foot. He's very tricky, skillful, you know, loves to shoot from range, loves to create. Grushko on the left-hand side is a decent player, but I don't know if he's going to play because he's just recovered from injury. So there could be a change. I think Yakolis, who's on loan from Angers, might come in, Croatian midfielder. But then in the centre of the park, they've got so many quality players. I mean, you've got Mikel Gonzalez that played under David Moyes at Zaragoza. At Sociedad, sorry, in that year. But you got Angel Garcia, that was at Real Madrid. Rosales, that was at Malaga. Who else? Altman, who was in Fulham's youth squad, if I'm not mistaken. So they've got a lot of players, and I think in wide areas they could cause West Ham problems. Fullbacks getting forward. A lot of their goals this season have come from wide areas, be it crosses in the box. What Ajax will do, they'll get the ball out wide and overload the box. They'll put 5 or 6 players in the box, which obviously leaves them open for a counter attack. But they're very aggressive in that respect. They've got Gus Ledders in the middle of the park that can pull strings, very good on the ball. So they can cause problems. But again,